You think you know about the terror, guillotines, tribunals, swift justice for enemies of the Republic? But in the city of Nantes, along the Loire River, one man turned revolutionary justice into something far darker. Jean-Baptiste Carrier didn't just execute enemies, he drowned them by the thousands. Children, priests, nobles, anyone who crossed the wrong line. When the convention finally caught wind of what was happening in the West, they put Carrier himself on trial. His execution wasn't quick. It wasn't clean, and the crowd that gathered to watch him die wanted blood for every soul he'd sent to the river bottom. If you value documented revolutionary history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also, comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from Simon Schama's Citizens and Donald Greer's The Incidents of the Terror. Now back to the story. October 17th, 1793. The Vendée region is in full revolt against the Republic. Peasants and royalists have taken entire towns. Paris sends Carrier to Nantes as their representative on mission. His job is simple: crush the rebellion, secure the Loire, keep the river open for grain shipments to Paris. Carrier arrives with emergency powers, no appeals, no delays. Justice flows as fast as the Loire itself. Jean-Baptiste Carrier isn't your typical revolutionary. Born in Yolet, Cantal in 1756, he trained as a lawyer before the revolution transformed him into something else entirely. Short, stocky, with deep-set eyes that colleagues describe as burning with Republican fervor. He'd already made his mark in Paris, voting for the king's death, supporting the most radical measures of the Mountain Party. Robespierre himself recommended him for the Nantes posting. A mistake that would haunt the incorruptible. Within weeks, the prisons overflow. Not just rebels, suspected sympathizers, priests who won't swear the constitutional oath, anyone denounced by neighbors. The Revolutionary Tribunal works day and night, but it's not enough. Bodies pile up faster than the guillotine can handle. The single guillotine in Nantes can process maybe 20 executions per day. Carrier has over 4,000 prisoners crammed into spaces meant for 800. Disease spreads through the cells. Typhus kills dozens before they can face trial. Carrier writes to his wife, Marguerite, "The work here is harder than Paris. These Western rebels have stone hearts. Only the river can wash them clean." The letter survives in the Bibliothèque Nationale. Even his private correspondence drips with blood. November 17th, 1793. The first noyades begin, drownings in the Loire. Guards march prisoners to barges moored near the Quai de la Fosse. They strip the condemned, bind their hands, load them aboard. The barges have trap doors cut in the bottom. Once loaded, crews row to mid-river. They spring the traps, down go the prisoners. The Loire carries them to the sea. The man who designs the drowning barges is Jean Lamberty, a ship carpenter from the arsenal. He modifies old grain barges, installing hinged sections in the hull held shut by ropes. Simple, efficient, deadly. Lamberty later testifies he built 12 such vessels between November and January. Each barge can hold up to 250 people if you pack them tight enough. Carrier calls them Republican weddings. Priests tied to nuns before they're dropped. Let them be married in the next world, he jokes to his staff. The first drowning kills 90 people. The second, 160. By December, entire barges go under with 300 souls aboard. The river runs thick with bodies. But the drownings aren't random slaughter. They follow a pattern. Mondays and Thursdays become execution days. Guards wake prisoners at dawn, march them through Nantes streets to the docks. Citizens line the route, some throwing stones, others weeping for neighbors they recognize. The procession takes exactly 40 minutes from the prison to the embarkation point. Jean Julien, a dock worker, keeps count. His ledger survives in the Nantes Municipal Archives. 4,200 drowned between November 1793 and February 1794. Men, women, children as young as 12. The youngest victim, Marie Lescott, age 10, daughter of a suspected royalist merchant. Her crime, carrying letters between safe houses. The drowning process becomes routine. Prisoners stripped to prevent their clothes from washing ashore and identifying victims. Hands bound with hemp rope, feet weighted with stones. The barges row to a specific spot, 500 meters downstream from the Pont de Pirmilne, where the current runs strongest. Water depth there measures 18 meters, deep enough that bodies won't surface for weeks. Some prisoners try to swim despite their bonds. Jean-Baptiste Carrier, a former naval officer, manages to stay afloat for nearly 10 minutes after his barge sinks. Guards in smaller boats used pikes to push survivors underwater. No mercy for enemies of the people, Carrier's orders state. Let the Loire judge their innocence. Bodies wash ashore downstream. Paimboeuf, Saint-Nazaire, villages along the estuary, corpses caught in fishing nets. Bloated forms beached on mud flats. The smell reaches inland for miles. Fish won't bite. Wells turn foul. Local officials write to Paris begging for intervention. Carrier ignores them all. Marie Pinot, a washerwoman in Pembeuf, finds 67 bodies in one morning along her stretch of riverbank. She knows some of them, a baker from Nantes, 2 young priests who used to say mass at her church. The corpses show signs of violence beyond drowning. Broken bones, knife wounds. Some prisoners died before they hit the water. The economics of mass murder become clear from Carrier's expense reports. Hemp rope costs 3 livres per 100 meters. Stone weights, requisitioned from demolished church foundations, cost nothing. Barge modifications run 20 livres each. Total cost per drowning, roughly 200 livres. Compare that to guillotine executions at 15 livres per head, including coffin and burial. The mathematics of terror. Joseph Fouché arrives in January of 1794 to investigate reports. What he finds shocks even a man who's seen Lyon burned to rubble. Mass graves outside the city walls, rivers choked with corpses, prison records showing children executed for crimes against liberty. Fouché writes directly to Robespierre. Carrier has exceeded all authority. The people of Nantes live in terror of their protector. Fouché's report details horrors beyond the drownings. Prisoners forced to dig their own graves before execution. Children separated from parents and drowned separately to prevent family conspiracies and death. Pregnant women held until they give birth, then mother and child killed together. The systematic nature of it chills even hardened revolutionaries. The numbers tell the story. Nantes population before Carrier, 55,000. After his recall, 48,000. 7,000 people dead, fled or missing in 4 months. That's 1 in 8 residents. The demographic impact lasts decades. February 17th, 1794. Paris recalls Carrier to the capital. As the Vendée Rebellion is largely crushed. The drownings stop. Nantes tries to forget, but survivors talk. Witnesses compile lists, names, dates, ages of the drowned. Evidence piles up like winter cordwood. Carrier's final act as representative on mission reveals his mindset. Before leaving Nantes, he orders the execution of Jean-Baptiste Michaud, the prison chaplain who kept records of the condemned. Michaud's crime, writing down names of victims and their alleged offenses. The Republic needs no martyrs. List, Carrier declares. But Michaud hid copies of his records in the cathedral walls. They survived to condemn their killer. The journey back to Paris takes 5 days. Carrier travels in a closed carriage, avoiding crowds in every town. Word of the Nantes drownings has spread across France. Innkeepers refuse his custom. Relay stations provide fresh horses but no food. He arrives in the capital pale, thin, nervous. The confident representative who left for Nantes has become something else. Thermidor changes everything. Robespierre falls in July 1794. The Terror's architects face the blade they wielded. The convention needs scapegoats for the worst excesses. Carrier's name tops every list. If you value documented revolutionary history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also, comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from Simon Schama's Citizens and archives from Nantes. Now back to the story. September 21st, 1794. Jean-Baptiste Carrier stands trial before the Revolutionary Tribunal. The same court that condemned thousands now judges their executioner. The irony isn't lost on Paris crowds, who pack the galleries daily. Tickets to observe the trial sell for 5 livres each, more than a laborer's weekly wage. The prosecution builds its case methodically, witness after witness, document after document. The scope of Carrier's crimes becomes clear. 4,200 documented drownings. Another 800 shot without trial. 600 children among the dead. The numbers pile up like corpses on the Loire's banks. Marie Bachelier saw her husband drowned for refusing to denounce his priest. Pierre Constant watched children loaded onto barges like cargo. They cried for their mothers, he testifies. Carrier laughed and said the Loire would teach them republicanism. Jean-Marie Philippot describes bodies floating past his mill for weeks, turning his water wheel red with blood. The most damning evidence comes from Carrier's own subordinates. Captain Francois Lefebvre commanded the barge crews. He testifies about orders to drown entire families together. Citizen Carrier said dead rebels cannot breed more rebels. He wanted bloodlines ended. Guards who participated described the selection process. Old people first, then women. Children last, so they could watch their families die. Carrier's defense crumbles under testimony. He claims he acted under orders from Paris, but no written orders exist authorizing mass drownings. The Committee of Public Safety's records show only general instructions to pacify the region by all necessary means. Carrier interpreted those words as license for genocide. His lawyer, Claude François Chauveau-Lagarde, faces an impossible task. How do you defend the indefensible? He argues temporary insanity brought on by revolutionary fervor. He claims Carrier suffered from patriotic madness, a real medical condition recognized by revolutionary tribunals, but the systematic nature of the killings destroys any insanity defense. The trial reveals the bureaucracy of murder. Carrier maintained detailed records of every drowning, barge capacities, weather conditions, estimated time to death. He tracked efficiency like a factory manager. The coldness of it horrifies even hardened Jacobins in the gallery. Revolutionary prosecutor Antoine Fouquier-Tinville delivers the closing argument. This is the same man who sent Marie Antoinette to her death, who condemned Charlotte Corday, who signed thousands of death warrants. Armed citizen Carrier transformed justice into butchery, he tells the packed courtroom. He drowned the innocent with the guilty. He made the Loire a river of blood. The verdict comes after 3 hours of deliberation. Guilty on all charges, death by guillotine, no appeals permitted. Execution set for December 16th, 1794. The gallery explodes in cheers. Justice delayed but not denied. November 28th, 1794. Carrier sits in his cell at the Conciergerie, the same prison that held Marie Antoinette. He writes letters to his family, still justifying his actions. I served the Republic faithfully, he tells his brother. History will vindicate me. The letters show no remorse, no recognition of his crimes, enormity. December 16th, 1794, 7 in the morning. Jean-Baptiste Carrier climbs the scaffold at Place de la Révolution. The executioner, Charles-Henri Sanson, has prepared something special, not the quick drop used for common criminals. Carrier gets the full ceremony, hands bound behind his back, forced to kneel before the lunette. Head positioned carefully in the wooden frame. The crowd numbers near 30,000. They've come from across Paris, some traveling all night to witness justice. Many hold signs with victims, names. For Marie Lescott, age 10. For the priests of Nantes, for the children of the Loire, vendors sell bread and wine. Street performers sing songs about the drowning judge. It feels like a festival of vengeance. Sanson raises the blade slowly. The crowd goes silent. You can hear pigeons roosting in nearby buildings. Carrier tries to speak, but guards stuff cloth in his mouth. No final words for the man who silenced thousands. The blade falls. It doesn't fall clean. The guillotine malfunctions. The rope catches. The blade stops halfway down, wedged in Carrier's neck, but not severing it completely. Blood pours onto the scaffold planks. Carrier convulses against his bonds, still breathing, still conscious. His eyes remain open, staring at the crowd that cheers his suffering. Sanson works frantically to free the blade. Seconds stretch like hours. The crowd roars, some with approval, others with horror. This isn't the clean death they expected. This is butchery. 20 seconds pass, the longest 20 seconds in guillotine history. Blood pools around the scaffold base. Carrier's body jerks against the restraints. Finally, Sanson yanks the blade free and lets it drop again. This time it completes its work. Jean-Baptiste Carrier's head rolls into the waiting basket. The crowd surges forward. They want to touch the blood. To see the man who drowned their friends and family finally pay. Guards struggle to maintain order as people fight for pieces of scaffold wood soaked with Carrier's blood. Henri Sanson, Charles Henri's son, later writes about the execution in his memoirs. Never had I seen the guillotine fail so dramatically. It was as if the machine itself rebelled against the ease of Carrier's death. The crowd believed it was divine justice, that God wanted the murderer to suffer as his victims had suffered. The aftermath proves almost as chaotic as the execution. Carrier's body, traditionally given to medical schools for dissection, is instead torn apart by the crowd. Pieces of his clothing, strips of bloodied skin, even fragments of bone become macabre souvenirs. The demand for relics of the drowning judge exceeds supply. But justice extends beyond Carrier himself. The trial reveals a network of accomplices, subordinates who carried out the drownings with enthusiasm. 34 men face subsequent trials. 22 receive death sentences. The remainder get prison terms or exile. The purge of Carrier's organization takes 6 months to complete. Jean Lamberty, the barge carpenter, hangs himself in his cell before trial. Captain François Lefebvre receives 20 years hard labor. Guards who participated in the drownings face varying punishments based on their level of involvement. Some claimed they followed orders under threat of death themselves. The courts show little sympathy. The political implications ripple across France. Carrier's execution signals the end of the terror's worst excesses. Other representatives on mission, fearing similar fates, moderate their methods. The convention passes new laws limiting emergency powers, requiring written authorization for mass executions. Too late for Carrier's victims, but perhaps preventing future massacres. Nantes struggles to heal. The Loire, once the city's economic lifeline, becomes a reminder of horror. Fishermen report nets full of bones for years afterward. New bridges built downstream require special prayers to consecrate ground polluted by mass murder. The psychological scars run deeper than the physical evidence. The drowning barges meet different fates. Some burn in the shipyard, others sink naturally, their hulls weakened by modifications. One survives to become a grain barge again, its bloody history forgotten until archivists discover Lamberty's construction notes in 1856. The revelation causes such public outcry that authorities burn the vessel publicly, but the story doesn't end with his death. In 1804, workers dredging the Loire near Nantes discover a mass grave on an island that didn't exist during the Revolution. Silt and debris had built up around thousands of bodies, creating new land. The bones still showed rope marks on the wrists. Among the remains, a child's skeleton wearing a communion dress, fabric preserved by river mud. The dress bore an embroidered name, Marie Lescaut. The Loire remembers what Paris tried to forget.